And we are live. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Strong Kumbi. I'm part of the Youth for MPA Steering Committee and Justice for Joe Steering Committee. I'm also a World Oceans intern, and I'll be facilitating this session for you today. So, good morning again. Today we have with us today Professor Rashid Sumaila, who is the Canada Research Chair for Taiwan Interdisciplinary Ocean and Fisheries Economics and University Kellum Professor at the Institute for Oceans and Fisheries. So I would like to welcome you, Professor Rashid Sumela, to the stage to share your presentation.
You.
Thank you.
Thank, thank you. Yeah. So can I go? Am I ready? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Over to you.
So good morning to you, and it's good morning to me too. Actually, just after midnight here, and thank you so much. And I'm really happy to be here. I'm so glad to see African youth stepping up to protect the ocean and make sure the ocean works for people living in Africa. I'm really delighted about that because I really believe the youth have a lot to do in lifting up Mother Africa and making the continent shine. So this is a beautiful example. I love it. So this is the title of my talk, and it's only 10 minutes for me and about 10 minutes and 10 minutes Q&A. So I'm just going to drop a few things. We'll never be able to go into the detail, but that is just to prick your minds and your interest so that you can take things further and do more stuff. I'm sure it's the same with my colleagues too, right? So let's see. Yeah. So this is really a model, my basic model, the model that guides all that I do when it relates to the ocean and also to nature in general. The first thing is people depend a lot on biodiversity, on nature, and in fact, we need nature, we need the ocean more than the ocean needs us. And if you look at what we do with the ocean, there are two basic things we do, or the environment, if you want to go general. We go to the ocean to take the things we need, the things we are useful to us, whether it's the fish, is the oil, what have you. We take from the ocean into our economy, and we do all the stuff with it, our culture, our social things, economics. We produce goods and all those, and then we do consumption. All of this lead to the creation of waste. And where do the waste go? They go to the ocean. So from the ocean, good things come to the ocean, bad things come as it relates to people. And if we don't do these things well, we're going to mess up the ocean. And when we take the goods into the ocean, into the economy, it's also upon us to use them socially, in a socially just manner, distribution wise, make sure it benefits as many people as possible. So that is my guiding model. If you want Sumaila's favorite model, this is the one. And you can open this. All of us are in here actually as we relate to the ocean. So that's the first point I make. And Africa's vast coastline. I'm just wondering how many of you have seen this amazing map of Africa. Essentially, the way maps are made, as you move towards the poles, the countries are stretched out, and therefore Africa looks much smaller than it is in reality. They are not cheating, that's the way maps are made. But if you really take out that artifact, which allows countries like Iceland to be stretched and look bigger, this is the true size of Africa. And if you want to know how vast the coastline of the continent is, I think this map tells you all. What you have in here, you have all various big countries in, you can just put them in a corner of Africa, essentially. This is the whole China, the China of the world that everybody talks about. It's just a little corner of Africa. This is the USA. Where is France? France, that's all of France here. And so all these our coastlines and the islands is massive. It's massive. And this simply summarizes the weight of Africa in the world. I mean, that you don't see in a typical map. And it also tells you the coastline and what we could do with this in a sustainable way and an equitable way, in a just way. This alone can keep the continent and its people alive and kicking. So that is the first point for you here. And on this line, you just see that's USA, this is Europe, the whole of Europe is just scattered. It's somewhere in the middle here. Then you have India. This is big Japan, huh? That's Japan for you, and so on and so forth. So this is massive. And that is why I'm so excited about seeing the youth stepping up, because African youth, if we are positive, we put our faith in the continent, we push our leaders, we will make this continent one of the best places in the world, I tell you. So that's the second point. Now you've heard a lot about the blue economy, the ocean economy, and there are many things happening on the ocean economy. And here I just list them. You have new stuff like marine renewable energy, offshore and tidal, so that's a huge potential there for Africans to step up and actually generate this energy, not only to support African economy, but the world actually and sell, because we do have carbon sequestration is one function of the ocean. Animals absorbing the carbon and taking the mariculture, all the agriculture stuff that happens on the ocean. Marine fisheries, that's what most of us think about when we think of the ocean, but it's just one of many. And then ecotourism, recreational fishing, marine-based new technologies, a lot of new clever things are happening related to the ocean, and bioprospecting, all the pharmaceutical. So there's a lot of potential for you, African youth, to be creative in a sustainable and equitable manner. Please, I think for me, this is the key thing for the continent. Don't copy everybody and just take the fish and the resources and 1% run off with it. Let it work for the people living in Africa as broadly as possible and as sustainably as possible. So that is the next point. And then this just to show you how intertwined we are with the ocean. This is a whole city actually just linked to the ocean. And this is in Senegal, huh? See all our people. They go in the morning to the coast to get their livelihoods that day, to get the fish they eat and little fish they sell in the market, and so on and so forth. So this is serious for lots of people in the continent and around the world. We need to keep this going. Food security, nutritional security. If you're in West Africa, even East Africa, South Africa, many communities depend on fish just to keep alive. So little data for you. This is the FAO estimates about 9.6 million tons of fish from African waters taken out. That's if we say 10 million, that's roughly about 10 million mature cows that we pull out of African waters each year, right? Think about that in terms of food security. If this is all used to benefit Africans broadly, can you imagine what it will do in terms of the added value, all the jobs that can come with this? So there is a lot here, and if we make it sustainable, this can continue forever, So Morocco, Nigeria, South Africa, the big ones, and you have the small ones also get something, right? So this is a lot of resources if we can manage it well, and this is only the fish, okay? Yeah, and then, okay, so I've talked to you about how important the ocean is, but our oceans are under threat from overfishing, from climate change, oil spills, plastic pollution, all the marine debris. If we continue doing this is the waste I talked about in my favorite model. If we continue messing up the ocean like this, it's going to stop supporting us, and it's under threat. And this is why we need to do all we can to protect it, including marine protected areas, which I will get to. All right, that's the next point. Then I just give you an example here. This is an estimate of the amount of fish biomass in Northwest Africa. This is the one that was modeled by one of our guys here, Willy Christensen. And this is not a painting. This is the best model, biological model, where you have to estimate the amount of fish in the waters of this part of Africa. And in 1960, that's what you see here. The more reddish it is, the more fish you have in there. This is what we had in the 2000s. So this is a massive decline in biomass. We are overdoing it, and we are using gears that are destructive. All the things. Each of these slides, I can talk forever on it, but we don't have time. Now, there is this new concept that I'm pushing, and I have a book coming out. I've been told by the publisher Elsevier it will come out in October. The title of the book is Infinity Fish. Infinity Fish is beautiful. I love the title, right? So this is the idea that if we manage just the fish coming from our ocean sustainably and for the benefit of the people, it can continue to give us benefit to infinity, which means the benefits will be infinity mathematically. And so that is what this book is about. How can we do that? This picture I show you here will not take you to infinity fish. This is destructive fishing, right? And we have to stop it. And a lot of it by illegal fishers, foreign fishers. We have the youth, man. One of our challenges to protect African waters. That's 200 nautical miles from the coast. Need to make sure they fish legally and also follow all the rules that our governments put out there in order to ensure infinity fish. Look out for the book. I think it's going to be fun. The first chapter alone, you will enjoy it. It starts from Namibia. I gave a story. I gave a talk to African ministers, and it was National Fisheries Day. And I start by telling them fish is more valuable than diamond. Imagine that in Namibia. And some of them almost fell off their chairs, right? So I tried to justify that and took it from there. That's chapter 1 beginning. All right. So then from infinity fish, what do we have? So we need to do to protect this valuable thing for us. We need to do a lot of things, and one of them is marine protection. Marine protected areas is one of the tools we have. And I like it for its simplicity if it is done well. Everything has to be done well, otherwise it can actually hit you back. Some of the reasons economists like me like marine protection is that it provides insurance for you, right? This is why you don't put all your retirement money in Elon Musk stocks, right? Because you never know tomorrow. So you diversify. You protect part of your ocean. So if you make a mistake where you fish, you have a backup. So the insurance value alone, for me, justifies the creation of marine protected areas. Then you have recreational value. Your shark is worth a lot more than the value of the fin. $140, you take a whole shark, just the fin, send it to China, you get $140. If you manage your sharks well, sustainably and recreationally, you can get one estimate $1.4 million in the life of the shark. So this is the thing you can do. A shark is more valuable to you alive than dead, essentially, right? And so we need to take this into account. The medium and long-term fisheries benefits. Most of the challenges we have in the creation of MPS is from the fisheries sector, because in the short term, they will have to pull back, and they don't like that. Fair enough. But overall, if you have a long-term, medium-term perspective, MPAs are good even for the fishing sector. And then you have the carbon value, option value, climate resilience value. More information and data is coming out on all of this. Equity values, actually, you can use MPAs to support small countries, like protecting the high seas. So the fish can come into Guinea-Bissau or into Kenya, and then they can fish it, rather than the 10 big fishing nations in the world taking all the fish in the high seas. So there are all sorts of things we can do. So let's talk a bit more. Time is always a challenge. So in this big report that over 100 scientists, economists, and fisheries scientists together did an analysis of MPAs. This is a simple economic model. I'm not going to go into it in detail, but you have to count all the benefits from creating the MPA and all the costs over time, and you do all the discounting, and you come up with a number. And we did that. We did that for the world, both for land and ocean protection. And these are some of the things, conclusions we came out on from the report. That 30 by 30, protecting 30% of the global ocean by 2030 is actually affordable. Our estimate is that it's about $140 billion a year. These guys go into space, right? You remember the three richest people go into space. They can pay this without even noticing, right? So this is not a lot of money if the world is willing to do it. It's just 0.16% of the global GDP. We can do that. And also we explored the benefit of that. And we saw a 1-to-5 ratio. So you put in $1, the benefit in a broad sense is 5 times what you put in. So it's good investment. Those of us who care about investment. And we also found that there's a lot of public money going into the ocean, but usually not helping the ocean or the people. These are subsidies, for example, to the fishing sector that are given to the big tankers and trawlers, right? Not to the small scale fishers. So it disadvantages them. It advantages women, gender comes in. It disadvantages the youth, right? The subsidies. We can do this better to help nature and help people and help nature. So the implication is that actually 30 by 30 would be a boost to the African and the global economies at large, right? So that is a study we reported on recently. So the key conclusions from our report again is that we increase long-term funding. We need to increase long-term funding for the protection of all our resources in the ocean and on the land. This is also about the land. And to do that, you need the government to step in, you need businesses to step in, philanthropists, and actually individuals, because in democracies, individuals vote. And who you vote for, what you vote for, has implications for how the ocean can continue to support you into the future, not only us, but our grandchildren too. So that is that. Let's see, I'm getting close. Yeah, what do I have? So in the final conclusion is from the science, from the economics. If we do it wisely, socially just way, actually it's doable, and we just go off and do it. Just do it, right? It's affordable, it's good investment, and we have a lot of money in there already doing harm to nature and to people. We can turn that around and repurpose that. So for Africans, we have to step up, do our best to protect our ocean, make sure it works for people living in Africa, and the world also has a stake in this, because without African waters being properly managed, the world ocean cannot be, because we just have one ocean, right? So in conclusion, I'm really glad African youth are stepping up. We can put you guys are more optimistic about the continent than my generation, and that's a great thing, because optimism is the first step. Asia developed because Asians believe in Asia, and Africans have to do that if we are going to see a bright future. Thank you so much, and if you have questions, let's go.
Thank you for that, Professor. That was very insightful. And I do apologize that time is always the criminal when we engage in such platforms. So,
Yeah.
without exhausting any more of the time, so I would like to open this discussion to the floor. If you can see on your right, there's an option where you can put your questions through. There's a raise hand function as well in your reactions. If you like to get on the stage, have some comments, and if you have any few questions. So I'm opening this discussion to everyone who would like to pop in a question or would like to say something. Um, while everyone is still thinking about what they want to say or ask, I liked what you said in your presentation when you said, let it work for the people in Africa. So for
Yeah.
me, that stuck throughout your presentation, because we should make this work for the people in Africa, not just
Yeah.
say we have this much protection and it's not working for the people who are actually rely on these resources for sustenance and
Yeah.
livelihoods as well. So thank you for saying that. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's wonderful. That's crucial, isn't it? I mean, what's the point? And history is not doesn't look good in that respect, right? All the resources in Africa, most of the time, doesn't really benefit the people in the continent, which is sad, isn't it? Yeah. So I'm with you, Chair. Yeah.
yes, I do have also my fellow panelists in this call as well. You are free as well to comment and have your questions. Since
Yeah.
the chat is, people are still thinking about what they want to ask. So if Professor Maniba, Ram, Emerson, you have any comments, you can
I'll
share.
really be happy to hear from the youth that are online. Let's hear your voices. Please tell your stories. This is one thing Africans haven't done much of. We don't talk about our stories. Yeah. Just write about it, talk about it, let the world know the stories. Don't let others define us and everything. No way. And if we don't talk for ourselves, nobody will do it, really. As well, at least. We do have friends and supporters all over the world, but it has to begin. Charity begins at home, right? So,
Bianca, we have a few hands from Peter and Ambangile. So if you could allow them.
All right, I've added Peter to the stage. You can ask your question, Peter.
good.
Thanks a lot, and thanks, Rashid, for the very good presentation. I also like something that you mentioned on marine protected areas, and you really emphasized on if they have to work, they have to work well, if established and are working well. And this is something that has been happening. I work with Kojo East Africa we work along the East African coast, and marine protected area have been established. And recently, probably in the last 10 years, 20 years, there's been the community managed areas, which is just MPAs, but with a lot of rights to the communities. But we have some of those things, they are not working really well. There are things that have been identified. One which you've mentioned, long-term funding. You have just 1-2 years, which isn't really enough to have fishery recovery and having livelihood. So I think
Did we lose him? Hello?
Peter, are you still with us?
No, it looks like he's disconnected.
We lost him.
Apologies. I will invite him back as soon as he's back in the session. Shall I bring Bangile on stage?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. We're having problems with the internet, maybe.
Sorry, I have handed the mic to Ambangile.
I'm from Tanzania.
Okay.
I'm so happy to be in this meeting, and I'm very happy for the presentation that have been presented short time. But the good thing that I'm happy with is all about the final words that is from your presentation. The second part, which is for Africa, protection mean more. The good thing is that most of people who are destroying the ocean just because of the economic issue, they're just because of money. And when we protect these marine resources, it means that we may earn even more money when we are protecting this, which is different when we will destroy this marine resources just because of money. It means that the money that we'll have, it will not be sustainable, which means we'll have money for just a short time. Then after some time, we'll not have it again. But the good thing, when we protect them, we'll end it for a long time, and that's a good thing. That I'm so happy with your presentation. Thanks for that.
Yeah. So thank you very much for the comment. Actually, this is so when you say that we're destroying for the money, it's also short-term money. You get it. It's all this
Yeah.
short-termism that is destroying us, And so you touch on a good point. I told you about the book and the opening there. As I started saying, so I go up on that stage and I tell them, you know what? I have a story for you. I have my main point is that fish is actually valuable, more valuable than diamond, and they were shocked. And I
Yeah.
told them two reasons. One is fish is renewable. Even if you get a small benefit, you feed your community, your village, you can continue doing that forever. And it's infinity.
Yeah.
How about diamond? I asked them, how many people have seen diamond in this room? Namibia is a big diamond country. How many of you have touched it? How many of you have even seen a penny? How many of you know somebody who's working in the diamond sector in Namibia? The BS takes the thing and goes. On the other hand, how many of you have eaten fish this week? And everybody raised their hand, right? So it is
Yeah.
also more community, it spreads to more people, and so it's extremely valuable. We need to protect it. Without the protection, we lose it. And that will really be unfortunate, right? For us and also for nature. But even if you focus on the people alone, you will just protect these resources. So thank you for the comment.
Rashid,
Okay, thanks a lot.
in the interest of time, I'd like to take one question from the Q&As. We have quite a lot of
Please.
questions there.
Great.
From Samantha, do you think the 30% target is attainable for well-established and effectively managed protected areas?
Yeah, an excellent question because really it's not just putting a line saying we have 30% and going to sleep. You need to really make sure it's not a paper pack, right? Where there's no control. So you raise a good point. There is that challenge, and it's well recognized. Well, that's why financing is really important, and also creating sustainable businesses related to the ocean, right? So you could, for example, have a line of a coastal beach, and then you create ecotourism business that helps you to earn a living and also protect the ocean, right? I've seen examples of that in parts of Asia, for example. In Vietnam, there is a Vietnamese couple. The first billionaire in Vietnam, he just created a huge prize for scientists around the world. It's 3 times the Nobel Prize in value, $3 million if you win it, right? So I got to be on the nomination committee, and this is a guy. He just started doing businesses at the coast, right? Creating hotels and being conscious of sustainability. And he's become a billionaire out of it. And he's doing an amazing stuff. He sponsors about 300 postgraduate students in Vietnam every year, he and his wife. It's remarkable. So how can we, the youth, this is where you come with your knowledge, your technology, how can you twist things a bit, get benefits for the continent and yourself, and in a sustainable manner? I always stress that. Otherwise, it will just go down. So, yeah, we need to find clever ways to make this thing work and be sustainable. And that is not easy. And that will depend a lot on different localities, right? So, this is why communities like this one are important to make sure that this works.
Yeah, thank you for that, Professor.
Yeah.
Due to time, I'll have to cut this session to an end. I would like to encourage our participants as well that your questions would be attended to, and everyone who has a comment or something to say, there's an opportunity coming up in the discussion session from 10 past 12 to 1. So your questions would be attended to in that session. I'd like to thank
Wonderful.
you, Professor Rashid, for your
Thank you
time
so much.
and your interest as
Thank you.
well
It's
to
a
talk to
huge
us.
pleasure. Huge pleasure. Yeah. All the best to the effort. Thank you all. Yeah. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to call upon our next speaker, Emerson Neves, who is the Sustainable Seas Project Manager,
Did
Top
I?
100 Young Young Conservation Leaders 2021, and a Global Youth Climate Network Ambassador. Emerson Nevis, I call you to the stage. Thank you.
Hi, Emerson. We're not able to hear you at the moment.
It's still soft, Emerson. Can you try speak louder?
Okay. Now you can hear me?
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Well, yeah, it's a lot of responsibility to speak after Professor Rashid. And I felt that he mentioned everything. So, well, I'm sharing here my presentation. No, it's not this one. Sorry. Oh, shit. Sorry. Yeah, just a minute here. So, yeah. Yeah. Well, I am Emerson F. from Mozambique. I work for Marine Megafauna Foundation as a sustainable sea project manager. As I was saying, for me, it's a lot of responsibility. I'm glad to be here as well. If I will talk about the treatment and the integrity of fusion of African marine system. Well, I'm not English speak. As I say, I speak Portuguese. So if you don't understand something, please. And if I somehow spelling wrong some word, please understand me. Uh, well, I will start it here. Well, first of all, I would like to highlight here, just for a few minutes, what where we are, what is my organization is doing. Uh, Marine Megafauna Foundation is a NGO which is focused on protecting the megafauna species such as whale shark, turtle, and manta ray. So you can see here like these green, white spots and red spots. These are the place that the Marine Megafauna Foundations are based. Uh, US states such as Tanzania, South Africa, and Mozambique. So in Mozambique, the work is focused to influence and empower Mozambique to protect the oceans. In 2015, Marine Megafauna Foundation started a program called Sustainable Seas Program, which was focused on working closely with coastal community uh, to promote sustainable use of marine resources and local managed areas. Uh, first of all, we here in Mozambique, we're based in Tofo, which is a small village here. And it's very famous because of the biodiversity, and also this call a lot of tourism activities. So we in 2015 we started here in Tofa, and now we're expanding for other regions here in Mozambique as well. So the main programs that we are running, we have local marine managed areas, alternative livelihoods, and also education programs, which we call it Ocean Ambassadors. On the Ocean Ambassador, we provided training, raising awareness on marine conservation and then the community. So we have now about 47 adult people training as the ocean ambassadors, and then they also training the local community in talks and so on. Just overview, as Professor Rashid was saying, we have a vast coastal line in Africa and a lot of biodiversity. I'll bring here an overview about the marine habitats. Of course, I will start here with marine species. In Africa, we have a lot of marine species, such as endemic and species. And I bring here whale shark because here in Tofu, Mozambique, we are so likely to have we are one of few spots in the world where you can see whale shark, manta ray, turtles, moila stingrays, a lot of megafauna in the same all year. So we are very likely. But suddenly, again, I will always refer to Professor Rashid because his presentation was amazing and he mentioned a lot of things. And these species are endangered. So we need, as a youth African, we need to start work on how to protect these species. So another things that I bring here is a mangrove. Mangrove I primarily found on protected shores where the wave action is working. So they are most extensive on the delta large of the Rive. So in East Africa, we have So as I was saying, in East Africa and Madagascar, I have more species of mangrove than the West Coast. Supporting from the 8 to 11 species, it will depend on the authors. So some also mentioned that we have 7 species. So one thing that we need to highlight about the coastal or marine areas in Africa is the coastal wetland and associated habitats. So the most extensive coastal lagoons are in Mozambique, Madagascar, and between Cote d'Ivoire and Nigeria. So on this coastal land, we also can find not only marine species, but we can also find birds and other associated habitats. And the last things that I bring here is a coral reef. In Africa, we have globally 25% of marine animals habit in coral reef. So coral reef are food source for some animals, and also as sites, breeding sites for some species as well. So we can Mozambique, Tanzania, and other East African countries, they are very rich in coral reef as well. So why should we care about the biodiversity African marine system? In this slide here, I'm sure that Professor Rashid mentioned almost everything. Most of coastal community, or most of people from Africa depend a lot on the fishing activities as a source of income, source of nutrition, proteins, and also for young people as me, we see oceans or marine as a source of jobs, and also a source of a place that young people can develop their career. I mean that like here in Tofu we have a lot of young people diving, for example. We have a lot of young people doing researches. We have a lot of young people work for hotels, restaurants, and other for some tourism sectors, which depends on mainly on the ocean. So I bring here key treatments to marine biodiversity in Africa and their source. As most of you know, we face a lot of challenge to protect our marine biodiversity here in Africa. So here, of course, we have a lot of treatments that we can highlight here. The overfishing, which is happening almost in each around the world. We have a mangrove destructions, destructive method of fishing as well. We have a marine pollution, also is damaged a lot of our marine biodiversity, such as the oil and gas developments. And also it's good here to highlight the coral mining for building materials as well. So will the beauty remain? As Professor Rashid was saying, this question is on our hands as a young people. So we are more enthusiastic, we are more motivated for changing things, we are more motivated for the new Africa, to take a lead now to protect our marine resource. So it's all depend on us, and we as young people we have the answers, and we know that the answer is yes, and we all need we will still doing the hard work to continue or to change the reality. Well, as a key recommendations, I bring here the improve of institutional capacity, which is to strengthen the institutional capacity of NGOs and other organizations which are focused more on the marine conservations. And also, we need a lot to involve the community on each steps or each process that we have, because we need to understand, we need to understand from the beginning. We need to understand, first of all, how the local community lives, what are their challenge, what they are doing to protect their marine resource. Because here we were surprised when in 2017, when we approach to the local community, we talk about the importance of marine species. We talk about the importance of protected the marine species. We talk about the impact of climate change, and the community bring great ideas, and they say to us that this is actually worrying us, and we started some initiatives here. So the community, they know that the importance of protected species. They might not doing it like in science way, but they know that if we, for example, fishing every day, we will overfishing. So in all activity, we need to involve all the community. We need to support the research, and also I didn't bring here, but the great news that we have here in Mozambique. I think some of you read on the newspapers. We have a new conservation laws, which included new species that were not protected on the previous law, such as marine, like the megafauna, whale sharks, and other more species, sharks. So there is something that the country is doing, and I think even the continent is doing. So my last recommendation is we keep doing our best, and it's all in our hands. And thank you so much for your time. Yes, and I would like to explain more and more, but my English is really limited. But yes, thank you.
Thank you, Emerson, for your lovely presentation. I enjoyed the part where you were highlighting the importance of locally led projects that foster restoration, that promote sustainable resource use. So thank you for that and for sharing your presentation with us today. Without further ado, I'd like to open up again this discussion session for the Q&As based on the talk that Emerson has given us. And if you want to say something or comment, there's a raised hand function. I encourage the youth as well who are in this call to take up this opportunity to engage with our speakers based on the presentation they've given us. Bianca, we have one hand raised from Snake Ukuzugula. Zulu.
I don't know if my microphone is on. Yes. Can you hear me there? Okay. Can you hear me there, Armstrong? Okay.
Yes,
my question, knowing that Mozambique has got the challenge of the gas in particular, the mining of gas and all of that, how much of the gas mining or the gas extraction is threatening the very rich marine biodiversity, in terms of, if, for instance, looking at the alignment of the rich marine or the MPA areas. I know that in the southern Mozambique, closer to the South African border, they have one of the wonderful, amazing areas which have been declared MPAs. And then do they have, for instance, the areas where they extract gas, are they closer to? I just would like to know, in terms of the threats of the gas extraction in relation to the marine protected areas. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. This is a real great question. And it's something that worry even us here in Mozambique, and you have heard it a lot what's happened here and in Mozambique because of gas, the tourism activities, but I would like not to focus more on that. We as NGOs, we stand and we came together organizing a lot of talks and also complain about what's happened. It's difficult to answer your question exactly because it's also involving a lot of sectors and also very sensitive areas, and which I don't have a lot of domain of. So, but I know that NGOs, and I'm also a big part of that, created platforms that they meet and they raise awareness about everything is happening and it shows to the public and the government all the negative impacts of these activities. I don't know if this answer your question, and thank you.
Thank you for answering that, Emerson. Bianca, we still have one hand raised from Eric Ramsey.
Okay, I've switched. You're live, Eric.
Hello? Hello?
Eric, you can ask your question. Yeah, speak.
I have a little disturbed network here. I don't know if you can hear me.
We are struggling to hear you, Eric. Can you speak a bit louder, please?
Okay. Okay. Thank you. I'm glad to be here on this platform. It's my first time, and I want to share, but to thank everyone here for the good presentation. It seems like we have a little problem with the youth for what we've been saying here. Sorry for my English, and I'm not spoken well. But I'm coming from Zanzibar, which is Eastland here. We've been surrounded by ocean. This is a great opportunity in Zanzibar. But I want to share something a little bit about here and experience the activities doing here. Last time in the campaign, the president of Zanzibar, Dr. Hussein Mwinyi, they tried to establish a economy for marine sector. Yeah, for Zanzibar, 80% of resources here come from marine, and 80% continue doing a kind of activities of marine. But even here, but we are seeing a lot of poor management of waste here. Here, one
Eric? I'm sorry to interrupt you there or cut you short. We're really struggling with your connection. Can you please put that in the chat if you can, so that we can engage further on the other discussion allocated for other questions and comments that we have. I'd like to move on to our next speaker, Professor Bram Dusha, who is the professor and chair of the Sociology of Development and Change Group of Wageningen University and visiting professor at the University of Johannesburg and Stellenbosch University. Over to you, Professor.
Thank you so much, Armstrong, and thanks to everybody on online. It's really fantastic, and it's an incredible honor to be presenting here. I will try to keep it short and to give a couple of thoughts in relation to the broader 30 by 30 movement. Both in terms of marine protected areas, but also in terms of land and terrestrial protected areas, and also respond to a couple of issues, perhaps stated by Professor Soumaila. So I think Emerson and Rashid and myself, but also Professor Isaacs, who will be speaking after, I think we all agree how important it is to get African youth involved in conservation, in ideas about marine and fisheries, and make them more sustainable, and that local communities are absolutely central in this. But the key question for me, and I've done a lot of research on this over the last 20 years, is whether 30 by 30 or 50 by 50 is actually the way to do so. So I want to actually make a couple of critical notes in relation to the 30 by 30 goal, and also then maybe challenge a couple of Rashid's points in his presentation to give you all some different options to think about. So one of my core arguments, and this is reflected in my title, is whether we should go for 30%, right, for 50%, or for 100% of the Earth, right? So if you want to do something, if you want to tackle a problem, should you tackle 30% of it? Should you tackle half of it? Or should you tackle the whole problem? I actually believe we should tackle 100%. We should tackle the problem as a whole, because if you just tackle 30% and 70% is still a problem, we still have a big problem on our hands. Now, let me explain that in the next couple of slides. So the 30 by 30 movement, both in terms of marine and terrestrial protected areas, has a long history, of course. It comes out of a well-established, right, loss of biodiversity globally that has led to the global sixth extinction crisis. And this is so severe, as Rashid, of course, also mentioned, and Emerson as well, that many feel that the problem is now so big, we need a solution on the scale of the problem, right? We need, as E.O. Wilson famously said, half Earth, 50%, of the planet protected in one way or another, to actually come with a solution that is, at the scale of the problem. So this started the Nature Needs Half or Half Earth movement that morphed into an intermediate goal of 30% of the Earth by 2030, right? So up to 2050. But actually, the ideas and thinking behind this and the networks behind this are long-standing, what we call neo-protectionist networks that really depend on two main things. One, sort of protected area models, and two, separating nature and people, right? That is the basis of those ideas that have now morphed into the 2030 30 by 30 movement. And there are some key problems with this. And we talk about this extensively in a book that was published last year called The Conservation Revolution: Radical Ideas for Saving Nature Beyond the Current Era of the Anthropocene. And I just want to mention 5 issues with the 30 by 30 or 50 by 50 elements. First of all, it doesn't really focus too much on the drivers of biodiversity loss, right? So it doesn't focus too much on resource extraction and global consumption, particularly by the rich, right? In order to actually address the source of the problem, right? So focusing on conservation areas is good, it's important, but you also need to make sure that you close the tap, right? That is the problem in the first place. Secondly, historically protected areas have had significant negative social impacts on people, right? And how to mediate that. And I'm very happy that both Emerson and Rashid made sure that they emphasize that a lot. But in practice, that is often very hard. And one of the reasons is that if you focus too much on getting communities involved, you may also end up making local people responsible for something that rich people have started. If you just say local people need to change their lives, what about rich people that actually put the pressure on the ocean? So it's not just, of course we should include local communities, but we shouldn't just include them blindly and forget about where the problem actually comes from. And that is from global middle and especially richer classes. Thirdly, who controls these protected spaces? Is it people themselves, indigenous people? If so, then I would not have a problem with it. But if it's only technical people or outside people, and if it's restricted, then I do have a problem with it. So the way that you manage and govern protected areas is critical. Now, fourth, I mentioned this already, right? What is the agenda for biodiversity in the other 70 or 50% of the planet? Right? We can focus on 30%, but that doesn't solve the problem. We need a whole Earth strategy. And most fundamentally, right, 30 by 30 has a history of actually working within a much broader, unsustainable system that they do not fundamentally challenge. In fact, it can even cause the opposite. And that's, I think, very worrying. And we see some recent examples of this in actual recent practice, right? So, by focusing on nice biodiversity that looks great, you may forget that, what's happening on the other side. So, for example, the UK government has a global ocean alliance, also called 30 by 30, but they recently allowed, new, what they call climate compatible oil and gas drilling. Right, I mean, climate compatible oil and gas drilling. Sounds insane to me, but that's exactly what the UK government just did in May. Last week, Joe Biden, who also has, a 30 by 30 policy and has signed an executive order in the beginning of the year, asked OPEC, the oil producing countries, to pump more oil to lower the oil price so that Americans can more easily consume oil again. Now, of course, they're in a tricky situation, because they depend so much on oil. But again, this is completely opposite to where we must actually go. Plus, look carefully at all the major conservation organizations, WWF, Conservation International, Nature Conservancy, etc., etc., etc. They all back 30 by 30, but continue to work together with the biggest polluters in the world, and they turn nature into capital. Right? They think that somehow you can become a billionaire or a millionaire just by focusing on, turning nature into a profit. But it doesn't actually work like that. That is actually the same logic that is at the basis of the problem. And you can't use the same logic as the solution that caused the problem in the first place. So, to sum up, 30 by 30 often does not actually get to the environmental and social roots of the problem it seeks to address. And a focus on protected areas can even result in the opposite, right, of conservation if the roots of the problem are not addressed. So we need 100% vision for the Earth, not a 30%, not a 50%, but 100%, vision. And something that we are currently working on with Professor Isaacs is in a program called Living Landscapes that Professor Isaacs will tell more about. But I have a very short video that I want to show you that lays out, some of the ideas around this idea of convivial conservation, conviveren, living with the rest of nature. And I hope you will enjoy that. And please contact us if you want to be involved with that, because we're starting a project in South Africa right now, and Muniba will tell more about this. But maybe Bianca, you can show the video.
Sorry, I just had to turn the presentation off before the video would load.
Remember this guy? Well, its fate is soon to be shared by many more species of animals and plants. Species that are key elements in ecosystems vital to us. Economic growth is putting continuous pressure on valuable habitats and species. So, what to do? Can we still change the tide? Can we protect the Earth by putting a fence around half of it? We don't think so. We think trying to protect nature top-down and at a distance is a losing battle, a battle that is turning more violent as biodiversity becomes scarcer. What about turning nature into a product, allowing businesses to trade in nature's services and protect biodiversity with the profits? This sounds logical, but really isn't. Continued resource extraction and land use change, the root causes of biodiversity loss, are not addressed by this model. In fact, it even depends on them. There is an alternative. It's based on two main principles. The first, let nature flourish more freely and let people be part of it. Allow nature to flow deeper into our cities and integrate living spaces into ecosystems in a durable way. Some human places will become wilder. Some wild areas may become more human. Secondly, we need to transform the economy. Right now, it is highly unequal and leads to intolerable pressure on the planet. We must balance and align human needs with those of the rest of life. An economy demanding endless growth can't accomplish this. To ensure that all life can flourish, the wealth that we already have must be distributed more equally. We call this Whole Earth Vision, convivial conservation. This requires changes in three main domains. The first is landscapes. How can we rethink rural and urban landscapes so that humans and other life forms can flourish side by side? Second, we need to change how conservation is financed. For instance, a conservation basic income for people living near biodiverse areas could support sustainable livelihoods and lead to forms of development based on care rather than competition. Finally, we'll need to organise conservation more democratically. This means that those with the largest footprints must change their livelihoods the most, even if they live far from conservation spaces. While inspired by countless initiatives under development in many places, the convivial conservation revolution is only just beginning. Much help is needed to expand this emerging vision into a movement able to transform policy and practice throughout the world. Get on board.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Wow, thank you. Thank you for that, Prof. Without wasting any time or derailing this momentum we have here, can I call to the stage Professor Moniba Isaacs, who is the academic coordinator and professor at the Institute for Poverty, Land and Agrarian Studies. Over to you, Professor.
Good morning, everybody. It is really a pleasure to be here, and I'm so proud that we have this African First Youth Summit. That the summit is here to address issues around conservation, but also that that it is driven by youth. And I think that, you know, youth are the people that are going to take up these issues. And I think it's so important that they take these issues up that are close to their living spaces, that are in their living spaces, that affect them daily. So I'm going to, Bianca, would you be able to share a screen? Okay, let me try.
No, sorry, it's loading.
Okay, cancel. So my presentation, following on Bram, I'm just going to step a little bit back. So my presentation is on MPAs, but it's specifically taking a justice lens in ocean conservation on the African continent. And yeah, next slide. So when we think about ocean, we think about the explorers around the African coast for scientific, commercial, religious, military, territory, trade, capitalism, exploitation, enclosures, but it's also all fit in what is a blue revolution that is still going on. And this blue revolution comes out in a more blue economy acceleration. And this is via marine spatial planning and what I often call as extractive resources. Oil, the gas, the seabed mining. So there's a lot of focus on the African continent that we want to kind of drive the blue economy, that we want to bring the wealth to Africa, and we are going to drive this. And then on the other side, a big conference in Kenya was the Sustainable Blue Economy, driven by the Sustainable Development Goals. And often you find that the Sustainable Development Goals often is framed within the blue economy. So that kind of issue that Bram just mentioned, on the one side, you claim a protected area, and on the other side, you have a marine spatial planning for oil, for gas, and for mining. So you destroy the ocean on the one side, and then you on the other side you protect. And what happens to people who are in between? So we're talking a lot about, when it comes to marine protected areas, it is about elite and adventure tourism, and it's hotel development in MPAs. And what does this mean to our people? What does it mean to our people's lives and livelihoods? So I'm putting in the concept of blue justice, small-scale fisheries, marine protected areas, and how do we kind of rethink, reform, and reimagine conservation by using those ideas of convivial conservation and apply it to land and sea. So I think it is so important for the continent that we have youth that are also critical about the mainstream narratives. Next slide, please. So it is very important when we talk to our issues on the continent, and when we talk about the work that I'm mainly doing on small-scale fisheries, I ask, where's the right for these small-scale fisheries to be recognized in the blue economy and in marine protected areas? What about the food security? What about the right to livelihood? When we have over 200 million people who are deriving a life and a livelihood of the ocean on the continent, a small scale, are they the missing middle? Are they the ones that would be ignored? And it's seemingly so. Next slide, please, where I kind of look at the concept of blue justice. And this is what I thought about in 2018. And for me, blue justice is about really looking at what is the social and economic justice for small-scale fisheries that are often overlooked in both of the marine protected areas and also in terms of the blue economy. We often see, and this aligns directly with what Bram said, that it's accumulation often via conservation with this elite tourism and adventure tourism and hotel development. Often livelihoods of small-scale fishers and people engaging, whether it's on the land and in the sea, is criminalized. Shootings and killings are happening. It's militarized in such a way that we have to protect the area at all costs. Poaching is often labeled as small-scale fishes and illegal fishing, but I've often wondered if this is not a form of a protest against how marine protected areas have been declared and marine spatial planning. So it is so important that we also have to start looking at what are the counter narratives in conservation and in terms of the blue economy when we're talking about access to marine resources. Next slide. We then look at the issue, if I want to add to blue justice, is this issue of spatial justice. It's almost that the alienation in terms of the concept of biodiversity is missing from nature and human relations. We have vast inequalities in our, if you look at the picture of a township and the landscapes, these rural landscapes. So we imagine convivial conservation bringing more green spaces into these depressed areas that are living conditions that we so well know around the continent in mega cities. And then we imagine what rural livelihoods are like. So I think it's so important to kind of reimagine this, that these uneven geographies that we are, that we have with spatial injustices, the inequalities and the rich biodiversity. It's almost these inequalities we see it, we feel it, we come from these communities. Why aren't we looking at challenging these narratives that we have? Next slide. So it's very important why we need convivial conservation in MPAs. The fortress conservation model for preserving nature without people, criminalizing livelihoods, the gear, the nets, the boat, you know all the stories. Women and fishers are arrested, harassed, beaten by officials. These are the mismatch between what our national governments are doing and the customary rights regarding access. Park officials are often the first in terms of these conflict relationships, but also at district and provincial levels. When asked to meet to discuss grievances of park officials, it's not interested, they're not accountable to them, they're not, and these are the kind of discrepancies. There's often where we have to also unpack, while we look at conservation, we have to unpack this kind of criminality in terms of illegal fishing, but also in terms of illegal harvesting. And this is the paper I co-authored with Emma Witbooi on abalone fishing and the illegal harvesting. So added to that, it's also important to look at, when we look at the challenge of the illegal, unreported, unregulated, and when I look at that concept, I just feel it describes small-scale fisheries. Often my colleague in Canada would say, no, it's also, you know, industrial fishing and all of that. But when it kind of, a lot of small-scale fishers are often don't report the catches. They are often known as illegal and also unregulated. So what is the management regulation we do? We have to regulate. We have to come in with harsh conditions, but this is not the talk of the day. So, but I think it is important that we kind of remind ourselves why people are in the situation. And where, next slide, please. Where are we then when we come to conservation? So, as Bram mentioned, we are bringing in the work that I've been doing on blue justice for small-scale fisheries, challenging the blue economy, the drive, the rationality, and we are linking that to convivial conservation. And in a project called Living Landscapes in Action, we're linking the land issues and the ocean conservation. And through that, we are looking at building an evidence campaign through ethnographic research, action, and interdisciplinary and transdisciplinary. You cannot just look at the problem from a social science. You have to look at it from you have to look at it first from a perspective of grassroots organization. What is the local realities in these 3 unique living areas? Mapungubwe, Isimangaliso, St. Lucia, and Cape Town. So we have a mix of rural, urban, land, and ocean. So we're not looking for the perfect case where all of these things are happening, but we are looking at where can we co-create, disseminate, communicate evidence, but also learning with people, co-creating with people is very important. And through all of this for the next 3 years, we will use these sites, and we will need your spirit in terms of the youth, in terms of changing the process, in terms of democratizing conservation organization and redirecting finance flow is what is needed. So I'm finally coming to my last slide. So my last slide is what we need, what we are going to do in this project is that we're going to disrupt. We're going to transform, and we want to renew conservation. And if we need that, we need to kind of build, we need to kind of have fuel for that. And the fuel would be the research and the training, but also network and technology. And out of that pot that we are cooking, we are going to pop out that there's going to be spatial and blue justice for these small-scale fishes in marine protected areas, and also policy, advocacy, and communication. So I think bringing all of the kind of work that has just Bram has said, and also bringing all of this together, I think it is important that we want to kind of get you also to think about these critical narratives and to also join us in thinking about how we implement marine protected areas and also the 30 by 30, or is it 50 by 50, or is it 100%? I think it is, let's go back to the basics and do our work and provide the evidence so that we can really unpack and renew. Because is it only our responsibility in Africa while the rest of the world can destroy the environment and we need to protect the environment? I think we need to talk about equity here too. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you for that, Professor Moniba Isaac. The chat is on fire, that's all I can tell you. This discussion and this engagement that's going on at the moment is very interesting. So in the interest of time, the next session is going to start at 10:55, but this session will run for the next 10 minutes. So the questions that we have on the chat and any raised hands, we're still going to entertain for the next 10 minutes. And if there are any questions that are not dealt with during this 10-minute allocation, we will try to go back to those discussions and questions at the time allocation from 12:10 to 1 p.m. So I'd like to open this discussion to the questions. We do have a hand raised. Bianca?
Yeah, do you want Nazreen or Siyabonga?
I don't know who
I'll start with Nazreen.
Sure.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much. And thanks, Prof. Isaacs and everyone else for really great talks. Prof. Isaacs, your presentation in particular hits very close to home. And as an ecologist, you know, I've been thinking a lot and speaking a lot recently about how our tertiary education is very sort of, or can be very, you know, narrow in South Africa, where we're not really taught about the social aspect of the land that we study. What is your, in your opinion, what is the role of ecologists or as ecological educators in this space? What do we need to do better to bring ecologists to the party? Because very often there's still this push and this pull amongst the more traditional scientists where, you know, they favor a very much exclusive approach.
Nashreen, I have to tell you a story. I was a young PhD student, and I went to a ecology meeting at a sister institute, and I was sitting there, and they were using a lot of formulas. And a comment was made to say, well, if you don't understand the formulas or if you don't understand our language, then you better leave. And that was a major shock to me as to how people are trained in terms of ecology. I think it is often that I find that a lot of people that I work with nowadays have been trained as ecologists, and they found that after their training, they realize that I don't have all the answers. I need to understand the social side. I need to understand the social dynamics. I need to get a bigger picture. So you are spot on to say that the traditional approach, the exclusionary or exclusive approach to ecology is not what is working. And I often find that there's often in that space, the minute you're talking about people or the minute you talk about politics is a big no-no. And this is very, very much present in the South African space. And often when they do that and when they say that, it's highly political. They make strong political statements to say that, you know, we are only looking at the ecology and we are not looking at the impact of that. And I think it is important that, you know, and I feel for you and I feel that challenge, and I feel that in many of my students coming and saying that we don't have all the answers and we haven't been trained in that way. We haven't been able to look at it. And I think it is important that even within our institutions, they need to, there is this, we need to kind of, I don't want to say decolonize our training, but I think we need to make our training that is relevant to our issues. And I think that is critical, important. I hope I answered your question, because I think it is something that one necessarily can't answer here. But we are definitely looking at disrupting that narrative, you know, and we're doing it slowly, and we are going to do it. You know, hopefully you can join us, or others on the call can join us and start kind of saying that, you know, I might not know enough, but I feel that there's something that is not working, that is right here. And yeah, so I don't want to kind of do an ad for our new project, but I think it's important that if I can just ask you all to kind of think critically of these mainstream narratives that are coming to us. Like
Muneba, maybe what you say applies to social scientists too. You've got to learn some ecology. It's not a one-way direction, right? That's why interdisciplinarity is the key. We all have to listen to each other. It's not like, okay, my way or no way, right? So, yeah.
I agree with you, my brother. You know, Rashid is, we started working together in Namibia many years ago. So yes, I agree that it is that you have to you have to do that. But I think that there are also, as you know, there's also different exclusionary and exclusivity of some of the specific science domain that is problematic.
Cool. Thank you for that. I'm just here, just listening in on this discussion. I'd like to say that other session has begun. So, but this session is still continuing for a few minutes. Bianca, we still have one hand raised from Siabonga Biase.
I've added Siabonga.
Okay.
Yep, you're live.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Thanks, Professor Isaacs, about the talk. I also like the points that you highlighted about the critical thinking that we need to show as youth, and also the points that were highlighted by Brem as well as the doctor that you're speaking to. Like a scientific evidence, like it's saying, like the main issue here, it is like the governance and the socio-economic characteristics rather than the size of MPAs, which are causing the MPAs to not be successful as they are expected. And like the ecological importance, social and economic, you do need all these parts to come together and to come like with a solution. But what I'm seeing, it's also a point of like politics, that politics might respond differently to guys of to social aspect, as well as to who are going for economic aspect, because there's also like money involved. So the also the main challenge that we will be facing as youth is how to kind of balance the politics to give us to listen to us and say, okay, we are going to take a holistical solution, not referring to size, but a holistical solution, because basically science is just telling us, okay, what's happening, why is that important, and then okay, we listen to that, and then we go to social and economy and say, how do we live with this in a sustainable way, in a long-lasting way, so that we are able to benefit in nature and we don't lose something. And I think as youth, that's what we need to think about. But it's more of communicating, learning to communicate, because everybody is most they've already specialized on that, and then but the problem is sitting down and it's not making our education to be effective as it's supposed to be. Because if you look at the number of people with maybe PhDs in nowadays, and you look at the problems, we're having more problems not being solved just because of the communication, effective communication. So I think we do need to focus on effective communication and applying that knowledge, not just writing many theses as they are and not applying that knowledge. I just wanted to comment on that's all.
Thank you for that, Siabonga. Thank you. I don't know if you still have further questions.
Nope.
Okay, thank you. There was a question in the, I don't know if Graham, you've attended to the questions in the chat as well.
I think I did mostly, but if people still want to ask further questions, that's okay, of course.
Mr. Chair, I was able to raise my hand before, but I couldn't do it now. I just to make one point.
You're already on stage.
Am I? Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm on stage to ask for permission because I can't raise my hand. So
yes, we can go, Rashid.
Yeah. So was it Bram? Yeah. Thank you for your talk, and there are many things. I think we need a whole workshop to talk. Yeah, because you raised so many things, and each of them is full of stuff, right? So you can't deal with it here. But your point about 30% and 100%, nobody that I know is saying just protect 30% and go to sleep. No way. It's just one component of the whole thing. And all the elements, you and Moniba and everybody is talking, I think they can be brought together to work, rather than saying, okay, we're not saying 30% only. You have to manage the other side too, right? And so I thought I would raise that. And the idea about drivers is really important. Yeah, you need to know the drivers. But one of the drivers is that people want to take everything. We know that. And I'm saying people, it may not be the small scale that Moniba is talking about. It's a big scale. They want to go in and take everything. And protection has got to be part of our portfolio of management, right? Somehow. And it has to be done well. It has to be done with the local people. It's difficult to do. You just mentioned Mr. Biden. Mr. Biden is dealing with Americans, whether he likes it or not. And if he just lets the oil price goes up, we're going to lose him. And you have worse than Trump, and you get worse stuff. So you got to live in real life also, right? So all these things come into play. And I know we can be idealistic. I would love to turn the whole world. In fact, I have a paper now where I'm saying we should give every woman being the basic income they need to live. I can say that, but Biden is answering to Americans. It's not answering to God or somebody. So anyway, there's a lot in your stuff that we can talk about. All right.
Can I briefly answer to that, Armstrong?
Yeah, please.
Because I mean, yes, we need to be realistic, Rashid. I fully agree with that. But the current realism that you are talking about has led to the extinction crisis, has led to massive climate change, has led to Donald Trump, has led to obscene inequalities in the world. I think the last thing that youth these days want is realism, right? We need idealism. We need to actually fight for what we believe in and actually put a large goal. If we continue to say, yeah, Biden, he has to deal with Americans, and Americans are crazy and they love their big cars, so we can't really do that much, then nothing is going to change. No, we need to say in no unclear terms that we need a different world. How we get there from the situation we are in to there is a different thing. We can talk about that. We are not saying, for example, we need to get rid of all protected areas immediately, right? There needs to be a process where we come from the current protected area system to what we call promoted areas. Areas that we want to promote because we love biodiversity, we love the animals that live there, and we love our relationships with the rest of nature. That's critically important. But if we don't have a broader ideal vision of a different world that is outside of the realism of Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and lots of contemporary people in the world, then we're never going to get there, right? So we do need that idealism, and the youth are desperate, I think, for that, and they need to lead us in that.
Excellent. Okay, so let's go. Idealism is part of what I do. I shake up things, right? But at the same time, I also, when you cannot convince people that, June 6th, some say it's a tourism thing, and you can't. These are the people you have. You have to either eliminate them, or this is the world we have, and we have to find a way to let it keep going. So anyway, idealism is great. Let's go for it, but at the same time, feet on the ground so we can get this going.
Absolutely. But if you don't give people an horizon, right, they won't be able to get direction, and that's critically important. So I want to really encourage the youth of Africa in particular, but all over the world, to start dreaming about big horizons and start dreaming about new things and that are different from today. And then we need to do the hard work to convince people that we need to get there.
So let us close the whole high seas to fishing. That's one of my proposals. That is big in my view. You would think it's crazy, but anyway, I have to shut up now and let yeah. We need a whole workshop. It's good because we can hopefully. I want to learn from you. I've been learning from Moniba, and I believe she learned some things from me, some of my less crazy stuff. But we'll see. Yeah, it's good to meet you.
Absolutely. Let's go for 100% workshop.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you again from the panelists to everyone that engaged in this session. I'm sorry, in the interest of time, to bring this session to an end. I'd like to thank the guidance and the wisdom in the room, and the rest of the day and tomorrow as well, which will be dedicated to hearing more from the youth. And I do like to extend our gratitude to our speakers, from Professor Rashid Emerson, Professor Bram, Professor Moniba Isaacs, and for your time as well to just engage us on these topical issues. And you have sparked great things in our minds and in my mind as well. So thank you for your interest and your time as well for giving us this day. I'd like to end this session, but the comments, the questions are still recorded. The conversation is still going on. We're still going to engage more on these issues. So me ending this discussion is not me ending the program entirely or the conversation we're having, but it's a start and a continuation of greater things that are coming. So thank you again for your time. And I would like to end this session, Bianca. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.